Welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ, hosted by the fearless Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. I want to thank everyone who is watching us on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, OBBM Network TV, and the other platforms. We really appreciate it. Now, this week, my special guest is Chairman Ken Cuccinelli from the Election Transparency Initiative. We will get to him very shortly. The states we're going to talk about: Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New York, Ohio. We'll go to our election term, our election trivia, our national news, the vote notes, which is an extended reading that you can also do online, international, and then my final thoughts, as always, which are unscripted. So let's get right into it with Chairman Ken Cuccinelli. Thank you so much for coming on, Ken. I really appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Linda, as always.
So you want to tell us what's hot in the news right now?
Well, it's where I live here in Virginia. The Democrats' really brazen attempt to gerrymander Virginia. And right now we have one of the fairest congressional maps in the entire country, as acknowledged across the spectrum. But that wasn't good enough for the Democrats. Their Trump derangement syndrome has led them to really jam a proposed constitutional amendment through Virginia's legislature and through a public vote. And I say that because only 5 years ago, we voted in a bipartisan redistricting commission by a margin of 2-1 that gave us those fairest maps in the country. And there was a lot of enthusiasm for that. That was in the 2020 election. The people of Virginia voted on that. So it was a huge turnout election. But in an effort to try to grab some more seats in the Trump midterm, they just threw the Constitution of Virginia out the window, trampled it. And we'll see now if the Supreme Court of Virginia throws out their referendum effort, which they prevailed, as I'm sure folks saw last week, by a 3-point margin after outspending the opponents 3 or 4-1. I think they thought they were going to win by a lot more, but turns out that while they turned out a lot of their Democrat base on the Trump derangement syndrome theme, even a lot of their own base really likes our bipartisan redistricting. It defaults to nonpartisan, which is what ended up happening the first time we used it. It has a fallback. And I think the Supreme Court of Virginia, one of the less political Supreme Courts in the country, is going to uphold our state constitution. And when people hear all these fights in Virginia, they're all under state law and the state constitution. None of this is going to the Supreme Court of the United States. It will be finalized in the Supreme Court of Virginia.
So Spanberger, who is the governor who told everybody she was a moderate,
Whoops.
comes in and signs all these bills and then does the gerrymandering of your different districts. Right. And that was just a week or two ago. So this is very quick that it is actually moving forward.
One of the fastest cases I've ever seen in state court.
And some of the other stuff that I heard already through the grapevine is that there were also voting irregularities again. Well, there's a surprise, you know. I mean, the manipulation of the votes and missing votes in different counties and all of that stuff. So do you think we have a shot at it being thrown out?
Oh, I definitely do. If I were a betting man, I would bet that the Supreme Court of Virginia declares this to have been conducted unconstitutionally under the Virginia Constitution. I'll give you the simplest example that was argued this week. Mind you, there are 3 different cases, Linda, but this week's arguments before the Supreme Court related to 2 of the 4 constitutional challenges and 1 of the 2 statutory challenges. If people want to follow this, they can follow it at electiontransparency.org and also on my Twitter feed at Ken Cuccinelli. But this week, the most brazen one before the court was, like many states, Virginia requires an intervening election between two passages of a proposed constitutional amendment. Well, the last time the Democrats had full control in Virginia, they gave us 45-day elections. So the election in which Spanberger was elected was last year, 2025. We vote in odd years for our state offices. And the 45-day election began on September 19th. Well, they didn't pass the proposed constitutional amendment until Halloween. How appropriate is that? 6 weeks into the election, and after over 1 million people had already voted, and the Democrats want to count that election as their intervening election under the Virginia Constitution. So they were very much on the hot seat on that point before the Virginia Supreme Court in oral argument on Monday. And if I were to zero in on one basis for the court to throw the referendum out, that would be my top choice, partly because of how brazen it is. As was noted in oral argument, no General Assembly has ever proposed an amendment while people were voting, while the electorate was voting before. So they've never confronted a circumstance like this because no prior General Assembly tossed aside the constitutional requirements like this General Assembly. So there's an equally strong argument coming in another case later, but because it's later, I think this one is likely to be the basis on which the Supreme Court rules the referendum unconstitutional. And I think you'll get that ruling in May, probably the first half of May.
So the 45 days of voting, I mean, that's an election season itself.
It is an election season. It's horrible, and there's no good reason for it. None. I'll tell you a funny one. One of the funny things in the oral argument was that the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, I'm a former Attorney General, is the infamous Jay Jones, and he hired counsel to argue the case. And we've heard from these Democrats about how early voting is on the verge of holiness and you're a racist if you're against early voting and so forth. And then they got into oral argument, and their lawyer said, look, early voters vote at their own risk. Like, tough crap for you, early voters, from the same Democrats who want all this early voting. They said that in court. You vote at your own risk. Hey, if some later information comes out, well, you should have waited and voted later. One of the justices said, well, what if they passed, meaning the General Assembly, passed it at 6 p.m. on election day? Our polls close at 7 p.m. in Virginia. Would that be good enough to count it? And they wouldn't answer the question because, of course, they can't answer the question. But they want election day to count as the election, not when voters are voting. And even that was exposed as a rather freakish argument by Justice Russell with the question I just described to you.
How many Supreme Court justices do you have in Virginia?
We have 7, and we're one of 2 states where the General Assembly selects our judges and justices. 4 of the justices now sitting were selected by Republican General Assemblies, and 3 were selected by Democrat General Assemblies. And the current Chief Justice, Cleo Powell, is among the Democrat selections. But I have a lot of respect for Justice Powell. I think that she is a judge's judge. And I am more concerned that this radical General Assembly, as they get more and more judicial picks, unfortunately, I think one of the things Virginia is going to lose is a reliable, high-quality judiciary. But we're not there yet.
How long do the judges, what are their terms?
12 years. They're very long terms, but this General Assembly will get at least one shot next year to replace one of the Republicans. And I think we can probably expect somebody along the lines of the Justice Jackson type that you saw in the Supreme Court.
Oh, my goodness. We don't need a DEI in Supreme Court.
Well, it isn't even just that. It's that they want radical, outcome-oriented people. I'm not even going to call them judges when that's the basis of selection. They just want politically obedient tools.
So you said the beginning to middle of May, we should hear something from the Supreme Court in Virginia.
Yeah, I think if you started looking in about 2 weeks, it could, at that point, will be on an any day basis. I have never seen them. So that we had the referendum Tuesday last week. They had briefing filed Thursday, and they had oral argument the following Monday. So I don't remember another state case that has moved this fast.
Who is the one who filed the lawsuit?
So some Republican state senators who were also members of the Bipartisan Redistricting Commission. There are other plaintiffs as well. One interesting plaintiff is a Democrat voter who voted early last year and who is a strong supporter of our Bipartisan Redistricting Commission. And she was shocked at the stunt they pulled to amend the Constitution. She totally opposed it, and her delegate proposed it. And she said if she had known that was coming, she'd have voted against him. And the purpose of that intervening election is exactly that kind of accountability. So it's very strategically smart on the part of the legal team to get that voter as a plaintiff. And it was legitimate on that part of that voter. She was ticked off that she didn't get the opportunity to kick her delegate out or to warn him not to do it with her vote. And I thought that was an impactful moment in the oral argument. That was a point in time when the newest justice picked by the current General Assembly interjected to challenge her facts, and it turned it out to be a faceplant. It turned into a great line for the plaintiffs' lawyers because they got to point out, look, this Democrat voter swore under oath at the filing of the complaint, the way we do it in Virginia. And those assertions weren't challenged by the other side. Those are facts established in the case. And that justice got really quiet. I think he was trying to help the Dems. And that comment makes me think this might not be unanimous. But this argument, this situation the Democrat General Assembly has created for itself is so brazen. It's such a trampling of the requirements of the state constitution that I wouldn't be surprised to see a 7-0 ruling.
Let's hope that actually happens. So then it'll end up going back to what it was, which was the bipartisan.
Well, we'll just keep the maps we have. Nothing will change, and everyone will run with the current map. And it'll be in place through 2030 until the Redistricting Commission draws a new map, which probably won't look much different than the current map.
And in Virginia, the governor's terms are how many years?
4 years, and you can't run for re-election. We're the only state in the country like that. So it's one and done.
One and done. Well, Ken, thank you so much for coming on and telling the audience about what is going on in the state of Virginia concerning the redistricting. I know that Texas, theirs was approved. Their Supreme Court said their redistricting was fine.
Well, there and the U.S. Supreme Court said that as well. And one of the things, it hasn't surfaced a ton in the Virginia discussion, is the part of the reason for the state constitutional and statutory challenges is we have a U.S. Supreme Court that is letting states do what they want to do. And what they want to do is meaning under their own laws. They've made it very clear that partisan gerrymandering isn't a basis for a federal legal or constitutional objection. The Voting Rights Act bars discrimination, but it doesn't force the drawing of maps the way it used to. And so what we have now is a very hands-off United States Supreme Court. So what these states do is likely to stand against any federal legal challenges. Very likely to withstand any federal legal challenges.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you, Ken, so much for coming on. People can go to your website, Election Transparency Initiative, because you have a
electiontransparency.org. electiontransparency.org, and you can follow me on Twitter.
We'll make sure we put that up on the screen and people will be able to see it.
Perfect. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you so much, Chairman Cuccinelli, for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you in courtrooms and communities nationwide to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country. This is our vote. Let's protect it together.
Hi, I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ from SYNC-O-WICZ, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new series that we have just added called SYNC-O-WICZ Presents Candidate Spotlight. And this is open to any candidate, any party, anywhere in the country that wants to have a 20-minute interview. So you can talk about yourself, your platform, your campaign, and we'll help you get it out there. So give us a call, send us an email, or visit our website. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. Our guest, Chairman Ken Cuccinelli from the Election Transparency Initiative, is always a wealth of information. So now we're going to start with Arizona. This is from KTAR News 92.3 FM, and this is from April 23rd, 2026. Maricopa County Board votes to block ruling that stripped it of some of its election powers. This out of Phoenix, Arizona. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 Wednesday to try to block a court order that would hand control of key election operations back to the county recorder, Justin Heap. The transfer, which includes computer systems, servers, and IT staff, would come just weeks before voters head to the polls. They voted to ask the judge to pause or stay that order and file an appeal if the stay is rejected. If the judge agrees, the transfer of staff, equipment, and election duties to Heap's office would be put on hold. The delay could stretch through the July 21st, a primary, and possibly beyond, leaving the board in control of the disputed responsibilities in the meantime. The fight is over who runs the critical pieces of the election for Maricopa County's 4.5 million voters. Now, the recorder's office traditionally oversees the voter registration, early voting, and mail ballots, while the board runs the in-person voting on election day. It's just really crazy out there with what's going on. This has been going on for several years back and forth, and we all know there are issues with the voting that occurred in Maricopa County, Arizona. Now, Maricopa County and one other county run their own voter rolls and their own system. Arizona has 15 counties, and there's those two that run their own. And of course, Maricopa County is the largest county in Arizona. So yeah, they have some serious issues and they're doing their own thing over there. So we'll see what happens with what goes on and whether Justin Heap, the recorder, the county recorder, will actually get back his duties that he originally had. And even the court is saying, hey, give them back. But those Board of Election Supervisors, nope, they want that responsibility. Now we're going to go on to Michigan. Michigan, this is from the Michigan Independent from April 23rd, 2026. Michigan House Republicans passed bill requiring proof of citizenship to vote. Yay! The Michigan House bill mirrors the SAVE Act legislation, which is the federal legislation. A Republican-backed bill requiring proof of citizenship to vote in Michigan passed the State House of Representatives on April 14th in a vote along party lines. Of course, the Democrats don't want to have any proof of citizenship. So the legislation received criticism from Democrats, really, and voting rights activists. I'm sure the League of Women Voters was in there, who say that the proposal could disenfranchise, oh, gotta love that word, disenfranchise a large swath of Michigan voters, including, oh, this is definitely from the League of Women Voters, including married women who change their legal name and low-income residents who can't afford to obtain the documentation required under the bill. Really? Again, the League of Women Voters thinks women are stupid, that we do not know how to take 5 minutes to change our last name. on our legal documents. Unbelievable. At least Michigan is going in the right direction with theirs. Nevada, NBC 3, and this is from April 23rd, 2026. How to check your voter registration ahead of Nevada midterm primaries. So this is for all of you out in Nevada. The midterm primary elections are fast approaching. The early voting period opens on Saturday, May 23rd, and election day is Tuesday, June 9th. At least it's not 45 days like in the state of Virginia. The Silver State uses a closed primary system. That means you can only vote for candidates from the political party in which you are registered. If you're unsure if you're registered to vote or you want to check on the details of your registration information, you can visit the Nevada Secretary of State's website at nvsos.gov/voter search. You can register to vote or update information online through June 9th, though there are certain deadlines for receiving sample ballots and mail ballots. You can also visit the Clark County Elections Department website to learn more about registering to vote and key dates for the June primary. Okay. Like I said, you want to make sure you're registered under the party you originally registered under. If DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, has a hand in it, you got a 50-50 shot that it's accurate or inaccurate. Now we're going to go on to New York. This is from the Haitian Times from April 22nd. New York Senate panel advances bill expanding Creole language voting protections. Measure would extend voting right access to Creole speakers and Middle Eastern communities. Really? Overview. A New York Senate committee has advanced a bill that would expand language access protections to Creole speakers and voters of Middle Eastern and North African descent under the state's Voting Rights Act. The New York Senate committee has advanced legislation that would expand language access protections for Creole speakers and other communities under state voting rights law. This is the United States of America. You need to speak English here. So now the taxpayers are going to be paying extra money for everything that is printed and also to have interpreters. Really? I know the United States language became English by only one vote. I don't know if any of you know that out there. We would have been speaking German, but why they are expanding this to people who live in this country, if you are a United States citizen, oh, wait a minute, probably goes to the illegals. I'm sorry. It's New York. So of course we have to make sure we include the illegals that are on the voter rolls and people who did not come here the appropriate way. And even if you did, you need to learn the English language. I'm going to do a little sidebar here. I think the tractor trailer truck drivers that don't speak English, majority of them that were given licenses that the Department of Transportation have gone after, are from the state of New York. It is important you learn our language. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Not surprised. Sure, Mondami had a hand in that one. They should communist socialists, take over. Started going into final thoughts. Reel me back in. I can see my assistant looking over at me going, what are you doing? It's not that time yet. Today's my opinion day. It's just have opinions on everything today. Oh, he just said every day's my opinion day. Okay, so now we're going to go to the state of Ohio. And this is from Dave Yost. He is the Ohio Attorney General, and this was his press release that was sent out on April 22nd, 2026. Yost defends residency requirements in Delaware County ballot dispute. Attorney General Dave Yost today filed an amicus brief arguing the Ohio Supreme Court to uphold a decision by the Delaware County Board of Elections to remove a candidate from the primary ballot who doesn't live in the district she seeks to represent. That's common sense. You can't be a candidate where you don't live. So the case is the state XREL.Lagathan versus Delaware County Board of Elections, involves Melanie Ann Lenigan, who is seeking a seat on the Republican State Central Committee for the 19th Senate District. Following a challenge to her candidacy, the Board of Elections determined she failed to meet the state's residency requirements. Quote, for purpose of elected office, residency is paramount, the brief says. Quote, Relator believes she has the right to shop for a constituency. She does not. Voters should choose their representatives. Relator would have it the other way around. Evidence presented during an April 10th board hearing revealed that Lenigan's ties to Delaware County are superficial at best. Lenigan testified that she and her husband sold their Powell residency in January 2025 and that she owns a home in South Carolina where her husband lives. Additionally, Legahan had not actually lived at the Delaware County address she used for her voter registration and candidacy declaration. You can't do that, but she did it. So the board had voted 3-1 to remove her from the ballot for the May 5th primary election and to cancel her voter registration. On April 14th, Lenigan filed a petition for writ of mandamus asking the Ohio Supreme Court to overturn the board's decision. So under the Ohio Revised Code 3503.02, a residence is defined as the place in which a person's, quote, habitation is fixed, to which whenever the person is absent, the person has the intention of returning. Yost's brief argues the board acted well within its discretion in weighing the conflicting evidence and determining that Lenigan's claims of residency were not credible. They sold the residency in January of 2025, a year ago. A year and 3-4 months ago? Elected officials should be held to a higher standard than their electorate, the brief says. A candidate's connection to their constituency informs decision-making based on the locality's needs, increases the local electorate's voter education, and preserves election integrity and public confidence in the electoral process. The brief contends that the Board of Elections executed its duty to ensure candidates have meaningful connections to the communities they wish to serve and asked the Ohio Supreme Court to deny Lenigan's petition for a writ of mandamus. Run for office in South Carolina with your husband. That's where he bought the house. Wow. Doesn't matter what party you're from. That's ridiculous. Do you realize what it's costing the taxpayers dollars to go through all of that? It's like, really? Again, no opinion from me. Okay, our election term of the week is from U.S. Vote Foundation, and this is from April 27th, 2026. Midterm general election is a federal election held in November, midway through presidential elections, in which voters elect their representatives for federal legislative offices in the Senate and House of Representatives, in addition to other non-national seats like governor, state representative, or local council member. Voters do not vote for president or vice president in this election. Every 2 years, 1/3 of the offices for the Senate and all the members of the House of Representatives are up for election. So basically, the House of Representatives are constantly running their campaigns. All right, our trivia question of the week is from watercoolertrivia.com from April 27th, 2026. Statewide elections in Maine and Alaska use RCV, an alternative voting system in effect in over 50 jurisdictions nationwide. What does RCV stand for? We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org, because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. We are launching Operation Verify Voters 2026, and we want to get everyone involved in every single state because you can make a difference. We will be able to train you. It doesn't take that long for the training. It's very, very simple because you know the people on your street, in your neighborhood who have moved or died. We want to make sure that the voter rolls are clean. We're going to show you how to do it. Go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org, or scan the QR code and we'll show you how. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. Again, I want to thank everyone for watching us on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, OBBM Network TV, and our other platforms. Don't forget to like and share. We want to get as much information out there as possible. So when I left you before the break, we were talking about our trivia question. I'm sure a number of you were able to get it, and others were just drawing a blank. I'll tell you, I would have drawn a blank. So statewide elections in May in Alaska use RCV, an alternative voting system in effect in over 50 jurisdictions nationwide. What does RCV stand for? Rank choice voting, which is not a good way to vote. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, the ranked choice voting. One of these days, we'll actually do a special on what ranked choice voting is, but I didn't really want to waste the airtime on something so ridiculous. Just if your state is even thinking about doing the ranked choice voting, please say no. Don't do it. It's ridiculous. Okay, we're going to go on to a national news, and this is from Fox 4 from April 22nd, 2026. Kalshi finds and suspends 3 congressional candidates for wagering on their own elections. 3 congressional candidates wagered on the outcome of their own elections on Kalshi, according to the prediction market, which said Wednesday that it fined and suspended the men from their platform for 5 years. It is the latest high-profile case of alleged insider trading on prediction markets, including Kalshi and Polymarket, which have brought bipartisan scrutiny from Congress and calls for stricter regulation on the websites where people can put money on just about anything. Kalshi's disciplinary documents named Mark Morin, who is running as an independent in Virginia's U.S. Senate race, Ezekiel Enriquez, who ran in Texas Republican primary for a U.S. House seat, and Matt Klein, a Democratic state senator running for a U.S. House seat in Minnesota. I'm betting they were betting, no pun intended, that they were going to win, because I can't imagine someone betting that they were going to lose. So Klein and Enriquez both placed bets less than $100 related to their own candidacy, Kalshi said. Morin said on social media that he traded $100 on myself. These relatively small bets follow mammoth wagers on prediction markets earlier this year that raised eyebrows. In one case, an anonymous polymarketer, well, he's not anonymous anymore, we know who he is, made a $400,000 profit in January on a wager that former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro would soon be out of office. So in March, after 2 U.S. senators announced legislation that threatened prediction markets, Kalshi and Polymarket highlighted new rules, including against political candidates trading on their own campaigns. So Morin refused to reach an agreement with Kalshi and was fined the most at more than $6,200, while Klein and Enriquez did reach agreements and faced penalties of over $530 and $780, respectively, the company said. All were suspended from Kalshi for 5 years. Some politicians did say that the punishment did not go far enough. U.S. Representative Mike Levin, a California Democrat, slammed the repercussions on social media, saying, "That's not a punishment, that's a parking ticket." So, wow, candidates betting on themselves now. I know you can bet on just about anything, but that's over the top. I mean, that's just, anyway. So now we're going to go on to vote notes. And as all of you who watch the program know, that's the story that has a lot more to it. You'll be able to click on the link on our website and read the rest of the story. But this story was from Election Transparency Initiative from April 26, 2026. ETI, former Attorney General Cuccinelli, on Virginia Supreme Court redistricting oral arguments. Quote, "The referendum vote is analogous to a governor signing a bill. Now the courts review whether it was constitutional." Ken Cuccinelli, he's the national chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative, and he's the former Attorney General of Virginia. The fast-moving case puts constitutionality on referendum and maps before Virginia's highest court. So we would like you to go to that story and you can read the rest of it. Ken, in the beginning of our program, actually did a pretty good overview of what is actually going on now. And it is a fast-moving case. He said within a couple of weeks, we should find out what is actually going to happen, whether the Supreme Court is going to uphold the gerrymandering or whether it is going to let it revert back to the bipartisan redistricting that was done in 2020 and approved by the voters. International news. So I was searching on the internet trying to find something from countries we hadn't heard from. And do you realize that Scotland has an election coming up? And this is from the International Foundation of Electoral Systems from April 27th, 2026. So May 7th of 2026 is the election in Scotland. So first we'll give you their population. They have 5.466 million people, and that's from 2021 that live in Scotland. And they have over 4 million registered voters as of December 31st, 2024. Their average turnout is 59.20%. For Scotland, the election for their Scottish Parliament is what is occurring on May 7th. They're expected to hold parliamentary elections. Again, the election was modified on April 9th, 2026. The most recent elections in Scotland, which is part of the United Kingdom. Now, according to a Wikipedia, because I checked two sources on this one, on April 27, 2026, the 2026 Scottish Parliament election is due to be held on Thursday, the 7th of May, 2026, and will elect 129 members to the Scottish Parliament. It will be the 7th general election since the devolved Parliament was reestablished in 1999. 6 parties have MSPs in the 6th Parliament, although only 5 won seats at the last Scottish Parliament election in 2021. The Scottish National Party, which is SNP, led by First Minister John Sweeney. The Scottish Conservatives, led by Russell Finlay. Scottish Labour, led by Anas Sawar. The Scottish Greens, led by co-leaders Gillian Mackay and Ross Greer. And the Scottish Liberal Democrats, led by Alex Cole Hamilton. The election will be held on the same day as local elections in England and elections to the Welsh Senate. So that is our international election of the week. Going to the final thoughts. Again, I never know what I'm going to say, but I guess I'm usually never at a loss for words. We see across the country some states actually trying to do the right thing. And then you see the lunatics, the far left that don't care about you as a voter. They want to make sure that anybody can vote in any election, even if they are not a US citizen or anybody, ghost voters, it doesn't matter. They just want it so that they can keep holding their seats and covering up a lot of the stuff that has been happening across the country with fraud. And don't think that you're in a state that there isn't any fraud. There's fraud in the elections everywhere, absolutely everywhere. There's fraud in the bonds. There's fraud in the leering groups. There's fraud in the Medicare, the Medicaid. I mean, it is just unbelievable what we are seeing across the country. And it is imperative that you vote. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you're registered in the party that you originally wanted to vote, because right now it's primary season and you want to be able to voice your opinion. And don't say, well, the elections, there's fraud in the elections and my vote won't count. I'll tell you what, if you don't vote for yourself, somebody else will vote in your place and maybe even use your name, even use your dead parents' or grandparents' name. And don't think it's not going on. It is going on everywhere across the country. And we saw the other day that Harmeet Dillon, the Attorney General from the Department of Justice, put out that there was 350,000 dead people they have found on the voter rolls. Our organization, we've actually found 550,000. Maybe some of them have now been taken off since they got a chance to look at them. But again, we don't want to have dead people on the voter rolls. We don't want to have people like the candidate that wants to be elected in a county that she no longer lives in even in the state that she doesn't even live in anymore. But this is crazy. And the other thing is, we haven't had the Save America Act has not been passed yet. Why? Upwards of 87 to 90% of the people in the country, irregardless of the party they are with, want it passed. You want to make sure that only US citizens vote, that you're 18 years and older, and that you reside in the district that you're voting in. Because a lot of the elections that are coming up are also for some of the local offices. You want to know who's coming on your board of education, your planning and zoning. Some places even elect their dog catchers, their election officials. It's important to vote. It's important to make sure the voter rolls are accurate. And all of you can help out. We have a program here at Fight Voter Fraud. You can go on our website. It's called Operation Verify Voters 2026. We'll show you in 15 minutes how you can help clean the voter rolls, even on your own street. We'll help you. We'll hold your hand. There's a lot that everyone can do. And another new series, before I go, that we have just added is SYNC-O-WICZ Presents the Candidate Spotlight. Every single candidate out there, if you're interested, I will do a 20-minute interview so you can tell your constituents exactly what your platform is. You just need to reach out to us, info@fightvoterfraud.org, and we'll get you set up. So once again, I want to thank everyone for watching SYNC-O-WICZ on OBBM Network TV, Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other platforms that we're on. Please like and share, get the information out there, get everybody involved. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.